Is this an energy deck? Absolutely. Is it a normal, insane energy deck? Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video, and today Mason has given us something pretty spicy. And it is an energy deck built around General Ferrous Rokiric. So this is there's a lot of words here. 3/1 hexproof from monocolored human soldier. Whenever you cast a multicolored spell, create a 4/4 red and white golem artifact creature token. So, this is an insane amount of value off of one cast trigger. When we think about like on-cast triggers in Legacy, a lot of times the comparison is to, say, a prowess creature that gets +1/+1, or a creature like Monastery Mentor that goes and makes a 1/1 token. Well, this is a 4/4 beater that just gets to just keep pumping out these golems, presumably pretty close to every turn. Now, there is, however, a problem here. If you are building around this, you are building around a 3-drop creature that then needs you to cast spells probably over multiple turns afterwards to really accrue value. So we are going to need some amount of fast mana here to power this out. And the original version that Mason sent in also had 4 spirit guides, but it was on 17 lands, which was feeling a little bit sketchy to me. So I bumped down the land count, bumped up the land count and bumped down the fast mana. The other problem with Simian Spirit Guide in the deck is that you don't want too many misses for Amped Raptor, which is one of the most powerful energy cards. You just want to go and get that sick value. We are going to be playing a lot of kind of weirdo cards here because we are trying to play, Boros costs. So we have Conduit Goblin, which gives you 2 energy, and then you can spend an energy to give a creature +1/+0 and haste. Notably, it is another target creature, so it can't do it to itself. We of course have Flage. Flage is great. Forth Eorlingas is great. And then we have the spicy one here. Wildfire Awakener. So this is 3-ish mana to cast, emphasis on the ish. And it has Convoke and an X cost in it. So when it enters, we create X 1/1 elemental creature tokens with, whenever they become tapped, they deal 1 damage to target player. The original version of this deck did not have Ocelot Pride, which was another one of the reasons that I cut Spirit Guides, was to get this into the deck. Because I think Ocelot Pride, Guide of Souls, into a large Wildfire Awakener that then repeatedly triggers Guide of Souls is honestly kind of gross. Now, the question here is like, how much of this can we get away with playing while being a competitive-ish Legacy deck? And I think a lot of times you can take an established Legacy deck and do one cute thing. So I think it is totally reasonable to play a Boros Energy deck in Legacy with Wildfire Awakener. Like, that might even make sense, even. I am not sure that we get to do Wildfire Awakener and the General at the same time. That might be straining a little bit too much, but we'll kind of see how it plays out in practice. The sideboard is primarily anti-combo with some additional white removal spells. We're relying on Static Prison in game 1, but sometimes we can just physically exhaust the amount of energy that we do have, so just being able to do swords made a lot of sense to me. The original sideboard had a whole bunch of Pyroblasts, but I don't think I want these situational Pyroblasts in my Amped Raptor deck. The timing there tends to be a little harder than the timing on something very, very generic like Swords to Plowshares. So, let's see if Mason's idea for a Boros multicolor Golem Foundry style deck has any legs here. And if you decide you need some cards for this, please consider checking out my sponsor, toamagic.com. I've got an envelope right over there with a whole bunch of cards that I've ordered for MagicCon Chicago to update all of my EDH decks, and I used my own promo code ThrabenU to save 5% on my order. Honestly, it was just smart. I got free shipping too. TOA is great. Check them out. Alright, let's battle. Opponent says good luck. Hello to YouTube. Well, hello to you too as well. Keep the storm. We have a reasonable opening hand here. We can Arena of Glory out General Ferrous on turn 3. We might just fucking die turn 2. This is, I think, not a matchup that I want to be seeing here. Is we take a few turns to really get going, and my aggro stuff is not really gonna race my opponent's combo stuff in a lot of cases. Like, we just get turned 2 if my opponent has Cephalid Illusionist here. Cavern of Souls art is fucking sick. Boo! Alright, yeah, okay, we're dead. So, we're gonna let our opponent repeatedly target their Cephalid Illusionist. I just basically want to get a feel for what some of their flex slots are like, but my opponent is going to reanimate a Thassa's Oracle, and I will be very, very dead. Alright, Memory's Journey is in a flex slot. That's an important one to know about. It means that some Graveyard Hate is just less useful. We've got some amount of removal to Fairy Prismatic Ending. I'm not seeing... or no, there are some swords. There is Urza's Saga. Alright, I think I have seen what I need to see here. We are dead. So, my primary issue here is that we can play things that are okay versus various combo pieces. Like, this is great versus the turn 2 Goldfish, but does nothing versus Nadu. I think I'm going to turn Static Prisons into Swords to Plowshares. I don't think I'm going to go the Null Rod route. And I will cut some amount of endgame stuff to just make my deck a little leaner. So I can turn 1 Conduit Goblin if I want, into turn 2 Ocelot Pride. This hand's kind of whatever, honestly. Conduit Goblin is not a particularly strong card. We're only playing it because of synergy with the general. Is Ocelot Pride Swords to Plowshares just good enough to keep a hand on? I don't really think so. This hand is much more objectively powerful. We didn't hit something like a Leyline hand here. That would give us early interaction, which we might want, but hopefully we just do something cool with an Amped Raptor. And that's that. Alright, that was an immediate Swords to Plowshares. The General? It's probably correct to just Amped Raptor, but damn it, we're here to play the General, right? So we'll play the General. So the reason it's not correct to play the General is that it's just devastating if this gets dazed. But if it doesn't, General into Flage is a very, very large amount of power. Alright. Now just like play out a creature that I also get to kill with Flage. That would be cool. This is notably hexproof from monocolored, so it's going to be hard for my opponent's like Swords to Plowshares, Prismatic Ending style deck to take this off the table. Yeah, fantastic. Arena of Glory is a fine card. We are not in the business of exerting that right now. So this is an on-cast trigger, so this just gets to happen. Then we'll Flage, and we'll nuke Nomads, and then we sacrifice the Flage and swing in for 3, bringing our opponent to 17. We have 7 power on board from 1 3-drop creature. That's honestly pretty good. We're not growing the graveyard particularly well for Flage, though. That is another Urza's Saga. My opponent's colored mana situation isn't great. Arid Mesa, not what I was hoping for here. I just wanted any like castable creature that I could get in there with Arena of Glory. My opponent's at 10. But my opponent could do like Nadu combo this turn, or I guess either one of their combos this turn reasonably. So we've got the floating mana. There's the Shuko that we expect. That is the Cephalid Illusionist. Shuko plus Cephalid Illusionist should win from this position. I'm not going to make my opponent click through it. They are lagging a bit, so we're just going to go ahead and move on. We were not fast enough to keep up with this deck. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com. It's just the best place to keep your online deck lists, and it's also a great tool if you're a competitive tournament player. What I'm showcasing here is its Compare feature. You can take 2 deck lists, plug in links to both of them, and then see which cards are unique to deck list A, which cards are unique to deck list B, and which cards are shared with both of them. And you can do this both with the main deck and the sideboard. If you are looking to fine-tune a deck list, this is a great way to do that. Alright, opening hand looks solid here. We've got the turn 1 Ocelot Pride, which hopefully will do some cool things this game. I'm probably doing Amped Raptor on turn 2. Ooh, we've got a Delver. This is an Enters trigger. So, like, Daze is a thing. I think I'm just going to accept that. I don't think I exert Arena of Glory this early in the game. Yep, we'll send it. 19, make my cat. Delver flips to another Daze, which is a little unfortunate, but not really the end of the world. I think my opponent is thinking about holding Delver back to try to check my Ocelot Pride. They are. In which case, Static Prison becomes very good for this turn cycle. The General. Well, we're going to start here. Wow, that was good enough for a Force of Will. And opponent is playing Spell Snare. You've got it. Do I want to yeet a Conduit Goblin into this Daze so that I resolve this on the next turn? And then I just have this with haste next turn? I think I'm into that. But I can't exert Arena of Glory. Yep. All right, that's fine. So this Delver holds back my Ocelot Pride in the short term. So now this Delver has flipped to a Stifle. That is a relevant card. Opponent has to decide whether they are still going to play Sword and Shield. And they are. I'm at 17. I think I'm going for the haste here. There's only one unknown card in my opponent's hand. So I think we're going for it. Alright, opponent can brainstorm to look for a Force of Will or Daze. Daze would be very good after I exert that land. Alright, General's in play. Cats don't get to attack, but the General does. Hit my opponent for 3. I am technically offering a trade for Delver there, but I don't think that's a favorable trade for my opponent to accept. It's unusual to see Delver playing Sword and Shield like this. Guide of Souls. That seems fine to me. I'm currently thinking about whether or not I am just going to want a 4/4 Golem, but this makes me not want to try to convert multiple resources into one Golem here. So we're going to keep sending in with the General. My opponent goes to 12. I am going to go ahead and just cast this as a creature here. And then pass the turn. Next turn, this land untaps. I can then cast the General in hopes of getting a Golem and a Guide of Souls trigger, which gives me a cat off Ocelot Pride, yada, 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 yada. So this Stifle may or may not be around anymore. It's a little hard to say. It's not like that good of a card, but like I have a General on board, so contextually, the Stifle that you might normally not want on turn 5 might be good enough to just accept here. All right, and we are continuing this whole Sword and Shield game. I will take 3. Opponent's not at the point where they feel like they can just turn the corner on the game yet. We'll play that out just so we can play around Daze here. And then we're going to attempt to get this Golem trigger. See if the Stifle is there. Stifle is there. I will keep the one that is not summoning sick. I will gain my life. This means that Ocelot Pride will make me another creature and gain me another life. And I've only got 1 energy, so I will just bash in for with 1 creature here. Okay, opponent is willing to accept the trade at this point, and now I do the whole Guide of Souls, Ocelot Pride, Song and Dance. That is a new Delver, and that Delver is not attacking. Joke's on you, I have another fucking General. Let's go, exert. Yeah. Alright, I will pay for Daze with Lotus Petal. Alright, Guide of Soul triggers. Now we're going to go ahead and go to combat. This one? No, that just turns it into a 5/3. It's not actually great. Let's do this. Guide of Souls trigger. Yes. Attempt to throw those on Ocelot Pride. It is successful. Alright, opponent will trade Delver for that, which I am perfectly fine with. I am now hoping to win this game with Ocelot Pride. And we do. Weird game. That's not a very typical play pattern for Delver here. I don't think I'm going to board in Graveyard Hate. There could be things like Murktide Regent that matter. I think I'm just going to go up to a bunch of removal. I'm very afraid of playing Forth Eorlingas in this matchup. I do not want my opponent with Dazes and Force of Wills and free/cheap interaction to become the Monarch. That sounds like a disaster. And then I will cut 1 other card of some kind. The general is hard for my opponent to remove other than blocking. I am totally fine with trading the general for an opposing threat most of the time. But I think I'm just going to remove a Conduit Goblin. This hand's great. Like, I have removal, I have card advantage, I have a combo with Ocelot Pride, I have a basic land, so I don't get wastelanded immediately. I can potentially Chrome Mox my least valuable card to play around Days as well. Like, there's a whole lot to like here. Alright, my opponent's on 6. And we've got a Delver off of basic again. There's a real cost to imprinting a card here. Like, Ocelot Pride Wildfire Awakener is pretty sweet as something to do in the mid game. I might just give up that card to throw down Ocelot Pride immediately around Days, though. I am sad about it, but I think I am into that. It has resolved. I'm not going to try to junk the Delver into Days here. Like, my goal is to Swords to Plowshares a creature, get in there with Ocelot Pride, start going wide, and then the following turn probably play Amped Raptor. Holy shit, a gut shot. Unexpected. Not saying bad, just it's probably been literal years since I've seen anyone cast a gut shot. I'm going to take 1 off Delver. Since Delver didn't flip, I might just play Amped Raptor around Days immediately. There's a Delta, no immediate shuffle. Yeah, let's do Amped Raptor around Days here. Okay, nice. Am I getting stifled? I'm not getting stifled. I will cast a Guide of Souls. Nice. And then next turn, I can maybe remove 2 threats at the same time. Delver should certainly flip off of Ponder here. Flips to Force of Will, which my opponent is shuffling away. They might be worried about their low card count and not being able to do 2-for-1s here. Wow, junking a Tameo. My opponent clearly wants something. Yeah, that's fine. I'll float a mana. Oh, we have the defensive Delver yet again. So I am going to attempt a Static Prison before playing a land drop, so that if this resolves, I can Elegant Parlor. It does mean that Spell Pierce specifically counters Static Prison. Days is acceptable. Oh, we got so much value there. Nice. I do have 3 energy right now, so I could do the Guide of Souls thing. But I would rather keep Delver locked up. The opponent's at 15, then 14. Then we'll do this. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Land drop again. Okay, this is what Swords to Plowshares was for. This is great. I will pay. So I'm going to drop Ocelot Pride as the bait card here. Nice. We'll yield to all energy generating abilities. Then we'll Swords that creature out of the way. Fantastic. We'll go to combat. Now, I'm going to get an extra energy at end step anyway. So yeah, I think I will pay this here. I'm just going to put it on Guide of Souls and make that tankier. And then this is now outside of traditional red removal range. So it seems like opponent was either looking for Murktide Regent or trying to do things that were growing a Murktide Regent with their lines over the last couple of turns. All right, and we're chilling. So yes, I will pay for that. I will go to combat. Everybody's getting in there. The opponent will be at 7 when that's all said and done. And then we do the Ocelot Pride thing. And we now have the City's Blessing. We're going wild. Shard, of course. Haven't seen that in a while either. The card advantage makes sense if my opponent wants to be playing extra cheap things like the Stifles and the Gut Shots. And we have gotten the GGs from the opponent here. So, 1 pretty damning loss and 1 pretty easy win. All right. We have a perfectly reasonable hand here. We get to go Guide of Souls into Amped Raptor and hopefully hit something nice along the way. Ancient Tomb Gamer spotted. All right. Static Prison is out. The rest of my cards here are fine. We are just going to go for the Amped Raptor immediately. Try to high roll here. So take that energy. I will not cast that. So I have 3 energy right now. So yes, I will pay that. Our goal here is to just make a large creature get in there. The bonus energy from Conduit Goblin hopefully will be pretty good. I can still attack into this Fable, and my opponent is damaging themselves. Is Conduit Goblin better than flaging that Goblin Shaman token? That 1 mana might really matter for something like a Pyroglyph. So let's go ahead and take out the Goblin Shaman token. I might even be able to double Conduit Goblin next turn. Opponent's at 8 already. Notably, oh yeah, that's multiple very strong 4-drops that we potentially just cut our opponent off of. My opponent has Chalice of the Void on 0, so their own Chrome Mox type cards have been shut off. Oh wow. Alright, that's the 1 ring. That's protection. So my opponent gets a turn, but double Ancient Tomb plus a 1 ring in play is rough. We will just be setting up for the future here. We are going to just ploop this into play. 2 energy, don't need to attack into anything. Can't Static Prison the 1 ring away through Chalice. The opponent is down to 3 with double Ancient Tomb in play. They've got some problems. That is a 1 ring on 2 counters now, so my opponent can no longer tap Ancient Tomb. Yep. I mean, sometimes this happens when you're playing Prison. You keep the Chalice of the Void hand, and then you play against a creature deck, and your Chalices don't do anything. I mean, not that it did literally nothing, but, you know. Alright, we want 4 copies of Swords to Plowshares here, and we can consider Meltdowns and Null Rods. If I fetch a basic Plains at any point in the game, I don't care about any Blood Moon effects. My Forth Eorlingas feel risky. I am unsure how my opponent is going to evaluate Chalice of the Void. They probably assume that I have Guide of Souls, Ocelot Pride. But I did just beat them to death with creatures there, so... Like, do I board in Meltdown, presuming that they attempt to Chalice me again? I don't know that I do. I think I just eat Chalice if it happens. I don't know. 8 1-mana removal spells might be enough to want to play Meltdowns. I'm gonna go Bombardment out and trim a couple of more expensive cards. I think there is just a very good chance that my opponent just overpowers me based on raw deck power when they are on the play. This is fine. Let's see what my opponent does. Alright, they are going for the early Chalice of the Void. That is acceptable. I can now just put Static Prison under Chrome Mox and just go on with my life. We've got a Flage. We can grab Plateau here. We're always going to have white mana through a Blood Moon effect due to Chrome Mox on Static Prison. I could just Conduit Goblin here and then attack with Hasty General Ferrous next turn, but this is not protection, this is hexproof. So I think I'm just going to try to high roll with Amped Raptor. Chrome Mox? Sure, that's guaranteed mana for a 3-drop. I'm not putting Flage under there. Flage is important to remove whatever my opponent plays. I think I put the Awakener under. And then just try to go General Ferrous, if possible, into Flage, into Conduit Goblin in some order. And assume that 8-ish power worth of goblins probably beats the fair stuff that my opponent is trying to do. There's some doubt, though. Sure. Broadside is fine. We'll see if my opponent wants to get rid of their Chalice. I'm assuming the answer is no there. And I am correct. So if this is hexproof from monocolored, am I fine playing this turn and answering Broadside next turn? Maybe at the cost of Amped Raptor. I think so. I think this is just like way too much value to not play. Alright, my opponent is at 11. They still have Ancient Tomb in play. Oh geez, are we? Yeah. My opponent's got a Spirit Guide. That is a hard cast Fury. When my opponent kills Amped Raptor, they can attack me for 2. No blocks, obviously. Are they passing? They are passing. So, again, hexproof, not protection. I think we're just flaging here. So I flage, I make a golem. This happens. I nuke Fury now. I nuke Fury so that I can just get in for 3 points of damage this turn. Every single point of damage is relevant when my opponent's mana base is as greedy as it is. If you max out on these MDFCs and Ancient Tombs and the One Ring at the same time, you deal an exceptional amount of self-damage. All right, so Broadside is still swinging in, not being held back defensively. I'm at 16. You have a One Ring to put you to 1 life. All right, they are throwing a Chalice at the Golem token, playing a Pyrogoyf to kill a Golem token. All right, so I can Conduit Goblin, but this is another creature gets haste. The Chalice is gone, though, so I just have Lethal. So white mana, 3rd energy, go to combat, attack, trigger, yes, flying, dead. That was another 2-0. The general did some work there. And if this game was lasting a little bit longer, Wildfire Awakener, or somewhere on the order of x equals 3 or x equals 4, would have gained me a very silly amount of energy as well. We have some wonderful kind words from the opponent to start things off here. And after those kind words, hopefully we beat them to death with a cat. This hand is a little YOLO for my liking. We are trying to line up this whole Ocelot Pride, like go wide stuff that we haven't seen yet. I have a Static Prison for an opposing creature if my opponent leads on a Nethergoyf or a Tameo or something like that. Otherwise, I'm kind of hoping the top of the deck presents a non-mana source. Ooh, and is rough now. We fine with that? And by that, I mean playing into Daze. I think I am. I think I am. I'm going to grab Mountain. A little laggy today. I'm going to drop Chrome Mox. We're going to imprint that Static Prison. And we're going in here. We could wait a turn to attempt to play this around Daze, but the tempo cost of waiting is very, very real here. I am the beatdown, I think, in this matchup. I think my opponent is trying to like play that control tempo role and then eventually clock me in a couple of turns with something like a Murktide Regent or a Goyf. And I think that if I'm going to win this, doing this immediately into this and making that 4/4 Golem token is a really big deal. Oh, we are out of gas. All right. I've sideboarded out Forth Eorlingas a lot, but this is like a moment where if I can Yu-Gi-Oh that to the top of the deck, that would be cool. It didn't happen, though. It was also objectively incorrect to play out that land, even though my opponent knows about it. Because I can play, if I draw a 3-drop, I can play a 3-drop around Daze guaranteed, whereas if my opponent has Wasteland plus Daze, they can knock me off of that. Little decisions matter. See? Yep. From Mox. Not what I'm looking for. Dual Guide of Souls attack here. I am winning as far as life total is concerned, but I think my situation is dire. It looks like my opponent is Reanimator. So, you know, at best for me, my opponent can now produce a 6/5 troll. Okay, nothing immediately, so my opponent might still have more counter spells and reactive cards. I can also just get, like, Bowmastered in combat. But I don't think I am in a situation to play around that. Sometimes you just have to accept that the way you win the most is by just fucking YOLOing it and hoping your opponent has nothing. We're just gonna send that to face, and maybe we get to Flage next turn. That's a land drop. My opponent just fully flooded out. They are reanimating a Flage so that they can get rid of my Guide of Souls. Alright, I can respect it. They didn't feel like they could go for their troll. If I can Flage around Daze in a bit, that sounds kind of nice. Yeah, I can't even Flage now, right? This is white. This would be white. Yeah, I can't even Flage right now. Alright, opponent is fetching end of turn for a Surveil land. Misty goes to Yard. Wow, yeah, my opponent has flooded out pretty hard this game. This is lucky for us, because we're out of gas, minus this Flage. There's a Fatal Push. So, if my opponent's last card is a Daze, I get wrecked if I play this. I think I am going to just play Amped Raptor here, and play this safer. Amped Raptor into Amped Raptor? Don't mind if I do. We get more energy here, but we don't get to do the follow-up thing. So now I have 4 First Strike in play. That's okay. And we start thinking about whether or not I can realistically pass this Flage. Arid Mesa. Well, let's send in for 4 first. Yeah. Bowmaster, very good here. Alright. Opponent takes 2. If this Flage enters play, I basically win if my opponent's last card is not Daze. I've not seen any Dazes yet. I think there's a decent chance my opponent has one, but I think I have enough cards in graveyard at this point where this is safe enough to do. I can just try again. Oh, actually, I should care about these. I should remove the creatures because of Reanimate. So, Guide, Raptor, you, done. Oh, it's not. Face. Feels like face, given that my opponent has Reanimates in their deck. Last card's not a Brazen Borrower either to bounce it out of play. Nice, nice. That was incredibly lucky on my end. Like, it's turn 8, my opponent drew 1 Reanimate effect. That game could have gone so much worse for me. Alright, we want Swords to Plowshares, and I will probably play Leyline of the Void. Against my opponent's Bowmaster deck, I think I'm going to get rid of Forth Eorlingas. Goblin Bombardment is a flex slot that can probably go. And then I am probably cutting some Boros card or other to round things out. Probably Conduit Goblin. I don't know, maybe it's Wildfire Awakener here to just lower my curve. Wildfire Awakener is so good with Guide of Souls, Ocelot Pride as a finisher, though. And the individual points of damage from that, like, very, very much do matter. Okay, this has Leyline of the Void, which is obviously good in the matchup. It has 2 mana sources. One of them is a little costly. I think it is fine overall. Opponent mulliganed once, and hopefully I slow them down with Leyline of the Void until I get this more expensive stuff online a little bit later on. Tamiyo's fine. I think I'm interested in static prisoning that. Less so now. So Chrome Mox here. I think this is a Days Be Damned situation. Putting one of these 2 cards under. I think it's the general. I think I'd like to try to live this dream. So we're going to go Guide of Souls immediately and try to get this online. It's really cool if it works. Oh, and it does. That's not to say that it can't get disrupted by Fatal Push, but the couple of points of energy that I accrue here are potentially very, very good for static prison reasons. You may have your clue. Island. It is a Brainstorm. Is this target player? This is target player. Sure. I can just static prison the Tamiyo. Sure. This is fine. The Tamiyo plus ability, ooh, will still work for a turn. Swords is kind of whatever here. Opponent didn't have days last turn. X equals 2. Nice. So I'm going to gain an energy. I'm going to make a bunch of friends, which is going to give me a bunch of energy and some life. Now, if you take a look here, I have some number of permanents in play. So I get the City's Blessing, which means that that happens. These are whenever they become tapped. So even if my opponent fogs, I still just have an incredibly powerful board here and a gajillion D energy. Bowmaster is very good for my opponent, but I don't really know if it's enough here. The general's not great. Am I sourcing a Bowmaster so that these can attack more freely? Just attack with this. Make it 5 power, which is really 4 power. Or I can spread it across 2 bodies, put it on Guide of Souls immediately, send in with this. If my opponent double blocks to kill this, then I swords. That seems fine. I think I'm going to send at Tamiyo. Send at Tamiyo. Hold back the elemental tokens for right now. Do that on the Guide of Souls itself. Alright, no blocks there. Tamiyo goes down to 2. I can hold Swords to Plowshares for something slightly scarier. Tamiyo pluses. Just cracking a clue. Sure. Snuff Out is great for my opponent. Now, I think to just use my limited amount of mana I will just attempt to swords that bowmasters. All right. So, combat. This is just sending 2 at Tamiyo. It keeps Tamiyo in check. I think I am fine doing that. Send 4 damage at my opponent's face beyond that. Or I could just ignore Tamiyo, send 6 at my opponent's face. Do 6, then 5, then 4. That might just be better. Assume that Flage kills them. I'm gonna send it the Tamiyo. I'm gonna hold back these elemental tokens. Alright, just at Tamiyo. I'm in kind of a weird spot here. Alright, so my opponent is just gonna do that. That is fine and expected. All it takes is 1 Guide of Souls, Swords to Plowshares, Static Prison for me to rip this game wide open. I think I can play with patience, but it's a little hard to tell. Another Wildfire Awakener also is just crazy. Yeah, this is great. Could be dazed here. Opponent's not casting spells, so... Oh, sweet. So I'm going to send that at Tamiyo. I'm going to send an elemental token at Tamiyo and put some counters on it. This blows me out less if my opponent has... No, if my opponent has a removal spell, it just goes at my Guide of Souls. Yeah, so I will put the counters here. What is happening? Okay, there we go. Yeah, attack Tamiyo. So yes, do the flying thing. Kill Tamiyo, and now all of these other creatures are just unlocked. I didn't gain any life, so I don't do cool Guide of Souls things. Opponent junks a daze there. And now, presumably, I just will 2-turn clock my opponent unless they do something kind of crazy. Sure. Punchies. Send them. Triggers. Target player. And believe it or not, I'm going to choose my opponent every time. That might be save targets. Always yield. All right, now Guide of Souls, which we are going to put the counters on the Guide of Souls directly. We have gotten the GGs from my opponent here. And this is why I thought Wildfire Awakener was kind of real. Like, this is very much a powerful legacy level interaction here. We had that mid game where we weren't particularly good against Tamiyo, but if there wasn't a blocker there, we would just have been attacking for 4. And if I was slightly more aggressive than I was, we could have gotten like 4, then 3, then 2, then 1 damage out of those elemental tokens as well. I think we're up to 3 wins now. Yeah, and all 3 of those wins were 2-0s. So there's definitely something here. All right, we are playing against Delthar, who tends to be one of the trophy leaders, or at least contenders at any given time. We can turn 1 Ocelot Pride and Guide of Souls if we get a turn. Fuck. So, we are playing against Oops All Spells. I would like to not die. So we are going to Static Prison the fucking Lotus Petal to get that out of the way in the short term. And I think I lead on Ocelot Pride rather than Guide of Souls. And then I can just intend on attacking with Ocelot Pride next turn to gain my life. Alright, I am getting unmasked. Losing Guide of Souls. Ocelot Pride is the thing that spirals and hopefully... Oh, opponent says was not meant to exile ritual. Oh no. Delthar, it might not matter. My hand is garbage, bud. We are not doing great over here. I need to top deck something. We lost round 1 to a fast combo deck, and I'm going to presume that I am going to lose this match. Like, if we steal game 1, that would be awesome, but I'm not really expecting it to happen. General Ferrous. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We'll get 8 this turn. I don't know that General Ferrous is a high roll. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So playing Chromox does not give me the City's Blessing early here. So, am I dead? There's a Spirit Guide. Alright, it's a Spy. Let's see which build my opponent is playing. There's a couple of different builds. Alright, so my opponent has Poxwalkers and a Disciple of Fraelis. Good to know. Most of the other stuff here is not particularly spicy. I can just concede here. I've seen the writing on the wall. And now we do some amount of anti-combo stuff. I probably want both of those. Force of Plowshares is okay. Null Rod is okay. Meltdown's not playable. I'm so reliant on Leyline of the Void for my wins here. I think I'm going to turn Static Prisons into Swords to Plowshares and keep some swords just so I don't lose to fair creature beats after I Leyline of the Void or whatever. I'm going to be cutting some top end, keeping the Awakeners. The game is too short for this to matter. Lage is so much mana, and then I will trim one General Ferrous. That gets me here. I think this is good enough for on the play, and on the draw, out of desperation, I might also do something like Null Rod. We have Leyline of the Void. Hands a keep. It's very close to that simple. And I think I amped Raptor on 1 rather than Ocelot Pride on 1. Yeah, especially if I win with Leyline of the Void this time. I think I will absolutely want to have the Null Rods for the Goblin Charbelcher pivot. Alright, my opponent is on 4 cards. I'm going to start with a Leyline. So, let's see where this game goes. I Plateau, I Chrome Mox, I imprint Conduit Goblin, I do Amped Raptor, Wildfire Awakener is what we hit. That one does not work. And we've just got a tapped land from our opponent. We get a little bit of time. I'm going to be a little lazy with sequencing here because it doesn't really matter in this matchup. I'm going to send in opponents at 18. They have a little bit of time to draw out of this. My clock increases by 1 per turn cycle. I hopefully will just find some reasonable play here off of this Surveil land. Yeah, no, that would qualify as a reasonable play. We'll take that one. Better lucky than good moment for sure. The opponent is at 15. I'll drop a Deafening Silence and pass. Do this whole thing. I can't get too excited though, despite having 2 very, very good enchantments in play, because Force of Vigor is very much a card that exists that could take out Deafening Silence and Leyline of the Void at the same time. So I could hit my opponent for 4 this turn, or I can create a shit ton of power. Yeah, this seems better. Although I miss out on Ocelot Pride getting me friends. So let's do an in-between thing. So let's do this. Make 2 friends. That's 3, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then when I do the Ocelot Pride thing, I will very easily have the City's Blessing. So gain the life. And I haven't mathed it out yet, but that seems like it deals 14 easily next turn. 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Yeah, very, very easily. Okay. Now we're going to do basically every single thing we can to make the deck more hateful. That might even mean playing Static Prison or pass the turn Charbelchers and mana that's played out, that sort of stuff. Yeah, Conduit Goblin is not super important here. Just literally anything that could possibly matter, we will bring in for this game. I mean, Deafening Silence is a fine card in the matchup, but I don't think this is good enough to keep. We really, really want a Leyline of the Void hand, and we'll probably mulligan aggressively for that. Our opponent is on 6. 5 is not good. We will go to 4. The 4 is not playable. We will go to 3. The 3 is bad, but it has a Leyline, and that's where we're at. So this goes back. One of those goes back. This probably is not something that I can keep, and I think I just keep the things that represent mana. It's possible I keep Chrome Mox Swords to Plowshares instead of Lotus Petal. Chrome Mox. Let's do that. It's just more awkward versus Thoughtseize. If a Thoughtseize style effect happens and takes my Chrome Mox, I have 0 initial mana. Leyline of the Void, not super strong here. I am going to Chrome Mox Swords to Plowshares now. I don't want to lose Chrome Mox to a discard effect. Lotus Petal. Wear down. Sure. Opponent did not gift me a card there to destroy the Chrome Mox as well. Unsure how I feel about that. For similar discard-based reasons, I'm going to go ahead and do this. It's a little scarier doing that after seeing Wear Down. Mathematically, I think it's pretty unlikely that they have 2 Wear Downs in hand. Alright, Dark Ritual. Yeah, and there's Spy. Yeah, opponent says rough. I mean, that is what it is, right? We had a good run in this league, but it is clear that we are going to struggle versus fast combo decks. All right, that was a fun league. Overall thoughts on the deck list. Most of the cards that are the spice in this deck were not particularly strong in my evaluation. I am not sure that I ever cast a Conduit Goblin all league. General Ferrous is weird. It is very hard to remove, but as far as its prowess in combat goes, as a 3/1 that is not protection from monocolored, but is hexproof from monocolored, that still means that something like an Orcish Bowmaster token can just block you. And that's not a feel-good situation for something that you want to be generating a lot of value while hopefully also attacking. I'm thumbs down on the general here. Now, like, did we do some cool things with the general? Did we accumulate some meaningful value in some of those matches? Yes, absolutely. Similarly, I was pretty down on Forth Eorlingas. Initiative decks are close to 0% in Legacy right now. The initiative is just kind of a rough mechanic to... Or sorry. Well, no, I'll finish the thought. Initiative decks are close to 0% in Legacy right now because introducing that mechanic into the game is very risky right now. There's a bunch of flash creatures like Orcish Bowmaster running around. There's a lot of creatures with evasion, and it's just hard to hold it. Even though this is a really cool fireball effect, I think Wildfire Awakener was just better. It has potential to get just absolutely silly with Ocelot Pride, especially if you have the City's Blessing and then can double up on those tokens. So I think the takeaway from this is that Wildfire Awakener is potentially a reasonable card to play if you are doing Boros Energy things, but you get to get away with one cool thing. And I think this deck is just so much better if you eliminate... You can probably keep Flage. I think Flage is fine. I think if you eliminate this stuff here and you just play some more low to the ground stuff, like you get, say, 4 Ajanis in there, maybe some number of Swords to Plowshares in the main deck. I think you can play a leaner version of this deck that still has the Wildfire Awakeners as this really cool endgame thing you can do. And Wildfire Awakener is also just perfectly fine with Guide of Souls. Although, if you kind of go all in on this and get dazed, that is certainly going to feel bad. Sideboard stuff felt pretty reasonable, even with a lot of that being dedicated to fast combo, though. Not having some Thoughtseize type effects in game 1 probably means that you're going to eat it to combo a lot of the time. At least the faster combo decks, you know. Maybe you have game versus a slower deck like Reanimator. Maybe you can just get their life total down low enough that they can't reanimate stuff. But like faster spell-based combo, I think it's a forget about it in game 1, unless you just happen to goldfish them. All right, so this was a lot of fun. The jank worked today, and if you decide you need this jank, you know where to go. Promo code ThrabenU. All right, have a great rest of the day, folks. See ya.